I put together a list on my website. I call it my sex trafficking indicators list.
Mm-hmm.
It is an exhaustive list based on my experience as well as, other people's experiences. And I just want to touch on a couple things.
Yeah.
Especially as a juvenile, if a juvenile shows up with a new purse or a new, phone
Mm,
or a new gift of some kind, we've all been around long enough to know that no one gives you anything for free without expecting something in return.
yeah.
So basically, if a child shows up with expensive items or money from somewhere, people should be asking questions. Where did
Mm-hmm.
this come from? If they show up with a phone, even if that phone has a busted up screen and looks like it wouldn't work, if they can get on Wi-Fi, they can communicate with their trafficker and their trafficker can communicate with them. Um, Hotel key cards, multiple hotel key cards. If that's found in the backpack, I always told my son, this is my house. There is no expectation of privacy in my house. If I need to take the door off the hinges in your bedroom, this is my house. I'll take the door off the
Yeah.
hinges. That's living with me. So I would go through his backpack. He knew I would. I would go through his phone right out of his hand. If he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give me the password, he no longer has a phone. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
kind of those rules that you have to put in place. And, that's what protected him. And he didn't have anything happen to
Exactly.
him. So
Yes.
just having those things in place. Now, as far as other indicators, do you watch Yellowstone?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So just like he's concerned with his cows and he's got the Y on all of his cows, he branded them.
Mm-hmm.
Traffickers do the same thing with their victims. They brand them with their tattoo. It could be a symbol, it could be their pimp name. But if you see
Mm.
multiple individuals with the same or similar tattoos, that's a huge red flag,
Wow.
that you might be dealing with or having contact with a potential victim.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of almost out there. I've seen victims with their pimp's name on their face. They do know that law enforcement's documenting that, and so they're kind of doing it under the clothing more often now. But
Mm-hmm.
it does take officers who make contact with these people to document tattoos, so then that way we can search for these individuals later to help us find these victims.
Yeah. Is there anything else, like, major red flags from that list you want to share?
Well, I think what else I need to share is how to report it once you do find that you have a suspected person
Okay.
that might be involved in trafficking. Maybe it's like your neighbor's daughter or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, or your own child. I would say that we have the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Some states are creating their own hotline. Arizona has a hotline now. It's managed by ASU.
Okay.
There's also online places like cyber tips you can report to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That would be where if you have someone sending inappropriate images to your child online on the devices. Um,
Mm-hmm.
2 points with that. While I'm here on this, if you do find something on your child's device and someone's speaking to them inappropriately or sending them inappropriate images, recognize that some of these apps, if you screenshot it, like Snapchat, it will let the other person know you screenshotted it. So take
Yeah.
another phone and, take a picture of it.
Okay.
So then that way you're not letting the bad guy know that we know. And then I
Yeah.
would not engage with them. I would call the police and tell 911 because they don't understand sometimes what's going on when you call the police. Tell them, listen, my kid is being lured to do
Mm-hmm.
certain things that are inappropriate. This person's online right now. I have the phone logged in right now. Some of these apps, if you log out or it logs out, times out, whatever, you lose the whole conversation.
Mm.
So I need an
Okay.
officer here right now to come get this evidence off the phone. I want to pursue charges against this person.
Wow.
Also, if let's say you log out and go into another app, that might close it out. They sometimes can delete these conversations from the other side. So capturing evidence for us is what I'm trying to harp on right now because I don't want to lose the evidence and I want to be able to go after this person. And for sure, I have had parents sign a consent form to allow me to take over their child's profile. And I've had, pet predators show up to meet who they thought was picking up, the little kid, and the
Yeah.
police are there, and I'm there to get them. So we
Oh,
definitely want to pursue those types of things, and we need to know right when it's happening. That is not something I would call the National Human Trafficking Hotline for, because there's a delay in the information going from there. I'm the one who's actually going to get it and work it anyway. So calling your local law enforcement first, that's a like in progress, happening right now type of situation.
Okay. Um, yeah, that was all very helpful. Thank you so much. And like I said, I'm going to link all those resources in the show notes so people can, look into that. Can you describe, because you've spent lots of time, with these predators, which is such an eerie thing. Like, over the phone, it's eerie enough, let alone like now you're face to face with them. And can you describe like what they're like? As, a Christian, you believe in like the spirit world and all of these things. Have you ever noticed like anything demonic about them, like or manifestations or anything just sort of in that regard about these predators?
I've definitely met some evil traffickers. Ones that offended on their own niece, their own relative, um, didn't have any remorse for anything they did, were very violent, um, only cared about
Mhm.
themselves. Uh, I have met some pretty evil people for sure.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, sharing awareness about this and continuing talking about this after I had retired is so important to me because I'm very passionate about everyone, knowing about trafficking so that some of the things that I've witnessed doesn't happen to anyone else. That's super
Yeah.
important to me. To get good juries so that we can put these bad guys away for hundreds of years. That only
Yep.
happens if we have a jury that understands what's really happening here, what's really going on, and can see through the lies. Because I've had traffickers lie on the stand. One of them even testified that I auditioned topless for him in 2008. The
Oh
jury
my
laughed.
gosh.
The jury laughed. That's not something that I was a school resource officer in 2008. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, they do lie on the stand. And I really want juries to, hear the truth, hear the victims, and understand the dynamics of this lifestyle so that they can make informed decisions. Because I know it's a big deal if you ever served on a jury.
Yeah, I didn't actually make it to the final cut, but I was called for jury.
Yeah, yeah, and it'll happen again. But
Yes.
it's one of those things that, it is a big deal to put someone in prison for hundreds of years. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But it's also a big deal for this victim to live with what happened to them for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's very important that everyone understands all of the aspects of trafficking.
Yeah, I heard how someone said too, like there's no difference between a sex trafficker and a pimp. Like it's the same thing. And how, you know, you can recognize it too because they like recognizing the traffickers. We talked about how to recognize, if somebody is maybe being trafficked, but then recognizing the trafficker because they show off the money. They try to look like pimps, like they really do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a pimp is a trafficker and a trafficker is a pimp. It's just a technical name, a more
Yeah.
professional name to call them a trafficker, but they are a pimp and a trafficker is a pimp. One and the same. So as far as telling a pimp or, determining if it's a pimp or not, that's, a little difficult also because like I said, traffickers can be male or female. They can be,
Hmm.
juveniles. I've had a juvenile pimp before. And that's
Wow.
one other dynamic that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but just like the father who has the car dealership and he's expecting to give his son the car dealership when he passes on or wants to retire to take the family car dealership. I think that pimping is a lifestyle that these individuals are growing up with. Their father's a pimp, their stepfather's a
Mm.
pimp, their uncle's a pimp, their cousin's a pimp. Somebody is a trafficker in that family that they learned this behavior from because
Ah.
it's really it's really a different dynamic. I've had many cases where I've arrested pimps' moms for interfering with the investigation, intimidating witnesses, destroying evidence,
Wow.
hiding things, all kinds of stuff. And also, technically, I could have pursued a lot of traffickers' moms because they're benefiting. I can see in the financials where the trafficker's giving their mom or their family member money made from the victims. They have
Yeah.
no legitimate source of income. So it's definitely that dynamic going on, I think, for sure, as far as traffickers. Um, they're very manipulative. The other thing that I've noticed in my experience is they don't stop just because we put them in jail or in prison. They have jail calls, they have video visits, and now they have tablets in jail and in prison. And I
Yeah.
even have a conversation. I could text my old pimp right now. He's in prison right now on one of my undercover accounts, and he's going to ask me to put money on his books and tell me to go
Wow.
prostitute myself to get the money. So
Oh my
they don't
gosh.
stop just because we put them incarcerated. And that's a
Yeah.
whole other like lack of or a need. We need some work done in the prisons and in the jail to actually reform them. Because, like I said earlier, I had a pimp that I arrested in 2012, came back out in 2019, and was right back to pimping. I've run into 4 traffickers that I arrested and put in prison in the beginning of my career that went back to it. So if I'm only one cop who rearrested 4 of my traffickers, imagine how many
Wow.
other officers out there are dealing with the same thing. So that's
Yeah.
definitely another issue with this whole thing is they're not correcting their behavior even though we put them in prison.